Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Katelyn Kucharo, founder and CEO of The Admin Effect. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy to be here.
It is a pleasure. You and I have spoken at length a few times. I really enjoy our company thus far, even though it's been very short-lived. I feel there's a lot of mutual, I would say, journeys, challenges, which we can certainly unpack a little bit. But before we get any further, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your history? And what the heck is The Admin Effect?
Yes, well, again, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here to share our story. But when I started in the financial services industry, I began my career at a large IMO. I started in the contracting and licensing department, and that's kind of where I built a bit of my foundation before I moved into a role where I backfilled positions around the company. So when someone's out on maternity leave, I'd have to go in, let's say it's case management, learn the job really quickly, do that job, but it gave me exposure to so many different departments within the company in a short amount of time. Then I moved over to the sales side, and that's really where I had a lot of exposure to product and other issues, escalations and commission issues, and really formed this whole background of, I was kind of a catch-all for everything, right? So I supported...
That's a blessing and a curse.
It is. It is. But, you know, it's fast-paced, and I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie in a way. So it was one of the best roles that I could do to then go out and begin this journey of what now is the admin effect. So when I was leaving the IMO, I had been complacent for a few years, and I'm someone who always likes to continuously grow. But I knew I didn't want to be a SVP, or there really wasn't this path for me at the firm I was with. So when I was leaving, I said, well, what do you go do now that I've worked for an IMO for 8 years? I could maybe work for a home office or an advisor's office. So I started talking to a couple of advisors, and this is where the whole concept of my company came about. You know, they didn't really want to pay me what I wanted to make for full-time, or they were like, oh, I just need someone part-time. So I started, that's where it kind of clicked of, okay, well, I could contract myself out to these advisors as their virtual admin and, you know, essentially form my own company. So I started with 2 advisors, April 1st, 2021, and quickly built my book up to 8 advisors, all word of mouth. So I'm set up in their office with all different email addresses, you know, different phone numbers, all different CRM systems, because to their clients, it looked like I worked in their office.
Right.
And I could, day one, come in and fill out annuity applications, life insurance applications. And over time, I moved over to the AUM side. I was working with RIAs. But there's this demand. And again, at the time when I got up to 8 advisors, I didn't even have a website. I wasn't doing any marketing. It was all word of mouth. So again, that's where I really found there's this demand for it. And 8 advisors is way too much for one person doing that type of work. So I was working 16-hour days. It was... The
way you can make it work, though, is because you're a woman.
Is that what it is?
I'm being entirely honest. A man could not do that. 8 email domains, working in 8 different offices with 8 different personalities, not to mention their clients.
Exactly.
The way they wanted to do things. Let's just be honest. You were able to do it because of who you are.
Yes.
Probably the chromosomes that you possess.
1,000,000%.
But you did realize, wait a minute, I think there's something here. It's almost like it is fractional operations as a company.
Yeah.
But this is scalable. How do I then take this to the next level, knowing that I don't want, even though I can, it's not sustainable that I'm maintaining the ops team for 8 different advisors' practices.
Well, and it kind of felt like a calling in a sense, because it's like there's no one that's doing this or helping these people, and that's why they're being referred to me because they need help. And when I was in the offices as well, you know, I'm working with their staff and their teams, and often they're not trained properly and they just don't have that exposure. Because if you really think about it, advisors, they get to go to the events and they get to get exposed to what other people are doing, but their ops teams don't get that same exposure that they do. So that started to really resonate with me, and that's where like the admin effect really came about, where I wanted to be that resource as well for ops in these advisor offices. So where we are today, I have a team of 18 rock stars, all awesome. Most came from an industry background, but what was interesting about that, even if they had, you know, 12 years of annuity case management experience, they couldn't come in and just fill out an annuity application. And again, this was also an issue in the advisor offices with people they were hiring that didn't have industry background. So we built out our new business intensive course where we train people on how to fill out these applications. Because if you can fill out an annuity application, you can fill out a Charles Schwab
Pretty much
application,
anything.
do, you know, the RA paperwork, broker dealer, whatever it is, or also, or life insurance. I mean, annuities are the most complicated, and you have to understand product. You have to understand the why behind it. And a lot of times people aren't taught those pieces, but it's not because people don't care or they just don't know what to train on until you've done it on mass scale like I have.
Okay, so let's unpack a little bit of this, because I think there's very, very important components to this conversation that led you to where you are today. If I can rewind a little bit. So one of the conversations we were having last night, well, let me go back even further. The first two advisors that you identified or established a relationship with, give me the kind of makeup, the overview of what those advisors' practices look like. Is it a one-person practice, two or three? What kind of business did they do?
I love
How
that
did
you're
they
asking
market?
this.
Yeah.
Because it's an evolution, which is really cool. So the first two advisors I started with were insurance only, and one more focused on life insurance, the other on annuities. But as this evolved...
And how did those gentlemen market their practice? Because I think that's also a very, very important part of the need to have operational support and what that should look like.
Yeah, well, first, so both of them, I was their only admin at
You
the
were.
time.
So they were just a one-man band.
Yes.
Cranking away on their own.
Messing up applications.
Messing up exactly. I mean,
Frustrated with the insurance carriers.
Let's presume they were very good salespeople, successful in their own right.
Very successful.
Yeah, operating at a very, very high level with the sales metrics.
But hitting that ceiling.
And also, let's be honest here, great salespeople, absolutely, most commonly, horrendous paperwork people.
Yes, and that's why they're so good at sales, because they don't have that ops side.
And they get so frustrated when they submit an app, rarely in good order, and then we've derailed. And it's really hard in our business to get back on track once an application has gone off track.
Yes, and for the client experience, I mean, if you're having to go back and forth with a client 4 or 5 times just to get an application through, number one, you've just increased that time frame from which should be 30 days or less to 45, 50, 60 days. I mean, we've come into offices that are taking 75 days to open and fund accounts.
Yeah,
And we're in there
optimal.
for 30 days, and we cut that literally down to about 30.
Yeah. Okay. So in that, because I think the genesis of that is just you just extrapolate it out, and it's not that advisors all of a sudden have miraculously changed. In other words, it more or less is what it is. Really, really good at sales. Really, really good at working with clients. Not so good at the operational side and the paperwork side of things. So how in those 2, 4, 8 that you started with, what ultimately resulted in that relationship? What was the positive outcome and what you were able to do and help their practice?
I was able to come in, number one, and it's plug and play day one. And again, now I have the team
Because you already had the
doing it,
knowledge.
but-
You were previously trained.
Yes, and now my team is trained on this because, again, my full circle, when kind of what you're bringing back to before, was I realized that all the components of my background at the IMO were what prepared me to be able to go in and do this day one. So if you only have pieces of that or you don't have any of that, you cannot come in day one and do that job.
Right.
So number one, plug and play. Day one, I'm already taking that responsibility or burden or whatever they call it off their shoulders day one. The other piece to this is a lot of times people are only using their CRM as a glorified Rolodex. They don't have the systems in place. They don't understand how to utilize it. But again, if it's just them, especially in the beginning, they don't focus on those pieces, right? They're the sales guys. But and if they hire someone, they typically wouldn't even know how to build something out in that system because they don't know what they're doing yet for that position.
That was one of the things you said last night when we were having dinner that really struck a chord in just reality. It's like, okay, I'm a business owner, financial advisor, wealth manager. I've now sustainable in my practice. I'm no longer in this survival mode. I'm doing really well, hitting on all cylinders. I've got clients. I'm prospecting. I'm doing all the things. I now recognize I need to hire somebody, but time is the scarcest resource that we all have. Definitely advisors, because they're so busy trying to manage their personal life, do all the prospecting, the client meetings. Who's training this person? So I'm smart enough to know I need to hire a person, but then what happens?
Exactly. The advisor ends up getting extremely frustrated. They hire someone, and this, I often say it's not always a people problem, but they think it's a people problem, but really it's a training and process problem. So if you have a great person that is really personable with your clients and it has, that the core values that your company shares, they can learn the job, but they just have to have the right training and they have to have the right process.
So what does the admin effect do or offer to help bridge that gap?
So to bridge the gap, so let's say you do hire someone. We have our training courses, so we will you can come out to our office. We have a 2-day intensive program that we offer in our office, which I love that version because you get exposure to my team that in real time doing the same type of work that your staff is doing.
The best of the best, the top guns.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and the exposure and to know that other people, even we know what we're doing and we still, I call us NIGO fighters because the carriers, I hate to say it this way, but I feel like they try to make our jobs harder than it needs to be sometimes.
Yeah. We call them the business prevention unit.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
It's terrible.
to be around people who get it, that's huge. But that's not for everyone, and not everyone can kind of stop and send their people out to our office. So we will come out on location. That is an option. And then we also offer virtual training. So we break down our training program into 4 2.5-hour Zoom training sessions. And again, I have my new business intensive program, which we built out, but we get to know the people before we do the trainings to really understand their experience level and then customize bits and pieces to what's important to their practice. Because it's not one size fits all. So we want to be as impactful as possible to these offices because we want to help cut down their cycle times. We want to make it a happy, healthier work environment, essentially. And you do that by knowing how to do the job and having the right processes and ultimately creating a really great client experience.
So is it fair to say that when you sign on a new customer, a new advisor, you really immerse yourself into their practice, into their environment? What are other ways? Is that true? That's what.
Yeah. So, and we also, again, people outsource to us so we can actually come in and do the job.
Be the back office.
And that's a great way. Through that option too, you actually get consulting as an add-on essentially because we're in there and we're assessing the processes. We've learned how to do it in that office, how they're doing it, but then we can give recommendations while we're in there, learning how they're processing their business.
The other thing that you and I talked about last night that I think should definitely be highlighted is in the case of, so I'm an advisor, I've got a small team, 5, 10, 15, even up to 20 people. Well, I'm still most of the time working in our own nucleus, dealing with our cases, our clients. I don't really have exposure to mass data. The bigger picture at large as it relates to the landscape of multiple insurance companies, multiple transfers, where the hot spots are, what are the fires that are happening currently, in the proverbial sense. I think having your firm and leaning on your firm as an extension of their practice gives a much bigger picture of the landscape.
And insights to their own business. So if you think about it, again, I have a team of 18 now. So they're working in these advisor offices out of their systems, right? So as a firm, I needed to be able to track what my people were doing and what their workloads were, because if someone came to me and said, I'm slammed, well, remember I had 8 advisors. So I don't know what busy means to someone else.
What does that mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's a great point.
I needed the data. But through that process of creating this way, my COO, Brooke, she's amazing. She created this data dashboard where we feed in the data and it's all individual to that advisor office. But what goes in there is it was for us originally, but really it drives transparency to their business. So they can see real time, what cases are pending, what's being held, how long transfers are taking, how long we have carriers time frames at the bottom of it saying, okay, well, this is how long this carrier takes for transfers. This is how long this takes. And we can put anything that they want to see in there. So it's just been great for transparency for us to know what our account executives are doing, but also for the advisor office, it brings that transparency to their business as well, where they can see it in one snapshot.
That's fantastic. And at the end, so again, it really, a lot of times it comes back to technological resources, wherewithal, and time. Much of which we're not very technically savvy.
Well, our
by
whole
and large.
business is clunky. I mean,
It is.
If you think about it, let's say I'm in an advisor office where I'm, an RIA, and I also do annuities and life insurance and all the things. Everything is out of a different system. So you're going into 4 or 5 different systems just to process one household's business.
Right.
If you can't make that process as efficient as possible, those clients are going to have a terrible experience. And again, we're set up for not for failure from the start, but you're pretty much set up to not be that successful. And it's just how clunky our whole industry is.
Yeah, clunky is a great word. I mean, it's just the opposite of efficient, right?
Exactly.
The other thing that I think is very important is those metrics. I mean, if I'm working with, 100 clients, and at any given moment I've got 20 cases that are pending, and the time to submit to issue is, I'm picking a round number, 42 days. First of all, how many advisors actually know that? And 2, how do I know that that's actually a proper time frame?
Yep.
Should that be 28 days? Should
Right.
it be 32 days? Because the faster I get cases through the pipeline, the more optimized, pun intended,
Yes.
we will all be.
Yes.
Okay. What I'd like to do is hear a little bit about maybe some success stories. An advisor that came to the admin effect, they looked like X prior to, and now it's Y.
Yep. So we have a good example. We have an advisor that came on with us back in March of 2024. And the previous year, he did about just over 5 million of annuities. He also has assets under management. He has a holistic practice. But he has a couple people on his team, but they were so busy, he didn't feel confident enough to go bring in more sales that they would be supported. So
everybody's pulling their hair out, working, they think, burning the wick at both ends. And it's like, I can't do more. I'm at capacity.
Exactly.
But are you?
Right. So
not until the admin effect comes in.
Exactly. But if you think about it too, when it comes to the training and hiring piece of it, they're nervous to do that piece themselves a lot, because they're like, I've been burned in the past. How am I going to find the right person? How am I going to train them? How am I going to get them up to speed? Well, we provide that day one. So they hired us. We have full-time gal in their office, started again in March. Again, last year he did just over 5 million. Well, since March, he's done 30 million of annuities since March.
Wow.
The sales were there. He just didn't have the confidence or the people that could process it as quickly and efficient. But his team is awesome. We work with them, and it's just become a more efficient process. And again, he can do more business.
From a sales and marketing perspective, I'm just curious, because you alleviated the ability to be more efficient on the administrative side. So more clients, more business coming in. The issue he was running into was, I can't process more. I can't process it fast enough. You helped alleviate that. But I'm just curious, what did he do to go from 5 to 30? Was it just more marketing of what he was already doing?
No, it was already what he was doing. It was there. He just couldn't, he didn't feel confident that if he met with more clients or he, did more seminars or whatever he was doing, that it wouldn't be supported.
Do you feel that he was also, in this example, involved in probably too much of that administrative responsibilities, where now it's either very, very little or none at all?
Yeah, because a lot of our advisors in our space, they're wearing a lot of hats, right? So they're meeting with the clients, they're the sales, they might have people helping with their marketing and have some back office people.
Well, it rhymes with all the hats in many cases. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So with that, you can't continue to grow if you are everything to everyone. So we understand that, and we come in and we take those things off your plate, but it allows them to take certain hats off and have that confidence, and that's when they can really focus on what they're great at.
So what I want to do is then also pivot off of, because there's a huge world of individual advisors who are ultra successful, right? And they're hitting hopefully all their goals, living their best life. But there's also enterprise level firms that are the 10 to 20, and we bring up a good point of financial planners. So what does that mean? Comprehensive, they're doing lots of assets under management. So most of their business is investment related, not necessarily insurance related. And then all of a sudden, we're really going to adopt insurance solutions as a part of our practice. The team who's so used to processing, use Schwab as an example, you said, we can do that in our sleep. You now put this application or this process on my lap.
Whole different world.
So explain to me, let's pivot a little bit and say, okay, and that's great. This is where the admin effect can come in and help those firms.
Yes, and what's interesting about that is a lot of advisors, or financial advisors, agents, they don't realize that. They hire someone that has 20 years of Charles Schwab experience, and they think that they can come and plug and play into
paperwork is paperwork.
Yep, they think they can plug and play into the insurance space.
Yeah, or applications are applications. Not the case.
Not the case. So, I would say annuity applications are one of the most complicated applications to fill out. And if you're writing with multiple different carriers, all their applications are not consistent. How they word things, different states. If you're in a different state, the product comparison forms are different, or
the suitability, all of that.
And carriers interpret questions differently.
Right.
So it's very difficult. I call it, people think it's basic math, but it's calculus.
Right.
So you can't expect someone that has basic math experience to just be able to pick up calculus the next day.
Great analogy.
So that's where we come in, because we have that piece figured out.
Are those more training experiences? So that's where a firm...
It could be both. Again, it could be both.
Either or. Okay. It depends on the needs of that firm and how
exactly.
that goes. Interesting.
Exactly. So you could have a whole team and you want to hit these other goals, and you can plug someone right in. Or you have a team that needs the additional training, or you just hired someone that is from the financial field but doesn't have the insurance experience. We train exactly on that, because if you're filling out an annuity application, you have to understand tax qualifications, funding vehicles, replacement information, where to find that, what information you need through that data gathering process, so you're not having to go back to the client a million different times. You have to understand how to read statements and what product is. You have to understand why this client is purchasing this annuity. You have to answer it consistently. I say, you're telling the story of why this is right for the client to the carrier. The carrier wants to actually take your business. I know it doesn't seem like they do, but they really do want the business, but they also want to understand, why is this good for the client?
Right.
But there's a disconnect in how people are filling it out, and that's where we come in. We have all the different guides, tools. We have a full workbook that if you come to our in-person training, again, otherwise it's all virtual.
Right. So your team is highly proficient. They're highly trained and skilled. They can plug right into a firm and help absorb any and all of the insurance solution,
Mm-hmm.
the administrative portion of their business, or, and it doesn't need to be an or, it can be and,
Mm-hmm.
you go in to help train their team become rock stars in their own right.
Exactly. And I think this is more of a passion and mission for us.
That was my next question.
Because I know what it feels like to be thrown into something and it's sink or swim and you don't have the background, you're kind of figuring it out. So what I want to do is provide those tools and resources and be that for our industry so they're not having to figure it out and reinvent the wheel every time.
I want to ask like the deep why. When you left your previous career and found yourself in this position to embark upon this journey, why? Like, what really sparked you to say, you know what, I want to start an administrative insurance paperwork firm? Like, what motivates you?
A number of things, but I think my main reason for all of this, you know, again, like I said, I became complacent over time, and I didn't feel like I had all the resources in certain times throughout that. But really why I left my old firm and what was going on in my personal life at the time, my why really is my best friend, Sara. She passed away from cancer May 23rd, 2020.
Okay.
And she fought for her life for a year and a half, and she was so brave and courageous, and she's my best friend since 9 months old. So she was basically my sister. I was very fortunate that she had moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina, prior to getting sick. So we were together
Up
all the
until
time
she
again.
passed.
Yeah, and while she was sick, I was right there. But going through that experience was absolutely life-changing for me. And I wanted to, after months of the grieving process, I wanted to feel sunshine again.
Mm-hmm.
And I really needed I needed to change my environment. And that's when I stepped out of that and I started surrounding myself with people who were like-minded, who wanted to grow and I believe she's living through me.
Right.
And we have plans for this nonprofit that we want to create one day. So I know there's
for
more
you.
reasons to all of this.
So through that loss, it helped to change your perspective
Yes.
on what was most important to you in life. And I don't want to speak for you.
No, that's exactly what I'm trying. Thank you.
So I think the reality of that is I think that's the blessing of losing somebody long before it's their time.
Mm-hmm.
And going through that does make you stronger. It also makes you have a better perspective on life and really what's important. So the saying I always say is mountain, molehill.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really a mountain or is it a molehill?
Mm-hmm.
And all too often, I think we just get caught up with making mountains out of molehills.
Yep.
And so experiencing a loss of a loved one way before or at a young age really helps shape your perspective on life.
Yes.
And it also probably calibrated you at a sense of like, okay, I could have just kept going through the motions, not going to do that. How do I want to make an impact
Exactly.
on other people's lives in whatever capacity that you ultimately decided to make an impact in advisors' lives, but in turn it also hopefully makes an impact in your life.
Exactly. She gave me that courage, and I hold her with me every single day. I wear this bracelet. Her wish is actually on
Good for
this
you.
bracelet in here. Her handwriting is on there, but I channel her. She's with us every day, and she gave me the courage to step out on this journey. And what I see is we're here for a short time, and I want to be as impactful and help as many people as I can. And again, I want to create happy, healthy, and work environments.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of environments aren't unhappy on purpose. It's not because people aren't good people. There's disconnects throughout the whole entire business, and especially for our industry. And that's where we want to connect those dots and create an environment where people can thrive.
Are there some things that you do at the admin effect that would be an example of that? Of how it's like, I want to make a positive impact in not just the lives of those that we serve, the advisors, but also the team members at the admin effect. Are there any things that you do?
Yes, actually. And I love this. So I have a gal on my team that came on board with me last December, and we just had our state of the company address actually on Monday this week, and I had her share.
How prolific. Oh my gosh. That's serious.
Yeah, I mean, I share, you got to be on the bus traveling the same way with your whole entire team.
Absolutely.
So I had her tell her story because she worked in an environment where she was very boxed in and wasn't given permission to think outside the box. She's very talented, so personable, and I always saw it in her. I call it untapped potential. Everyone has untapped potential. So my mission is to untap it and let them roll. And that's what's happened. And she has grown so much. She is solving problems that are outside of her job description because she has permission to do that. But it's also building that confidence. And I always say, I always want my team to grow. And we do this TA book club where the last book we did was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Great book, by the way. Highly recommend it. But I believe in personal and professional growth.
Right.
So we do that as a team, but to see them get comfortable with being uncomfortable
Right.
is my mission, so they can put themselves in positions to continue to grow. And as we grow, more opportunities arise, and I want them to be able to have the confidence to step up and be a part of that.
From the outside looking in, it's great to see people find empowerment and to be refreshed with that, but also it's even better when they internally experience that and they then become recognized for themselves, not because somebody else sees it. That is the true beauty.
It's huge. And she texted me the other day thanking me and saying that her home life is so much better today because of how awesome her work life is. And to me, that means everything.
That's
and
great.
actually, when I started this, remember, it was just me. I didn't know what it meant to me to build a company and a team.
And here we are.
And the impact that I can have on that. And that's why I want ingrained in everyone on my team, because that's what I want them to exude out of their pores for everyone else that comes into our organization and everyone that we serve.
That's great. Great insights. We share a lot of similar values, if
We
you will, in
do.
their companies that we're trying to build. Okay, moving off from that, as we come to a close here, what can you give an example of like one of the biggest challenges in the journey of the admin effect that happened and what you did to kind of get to the other side? Because we all face big challenges that are sometimes we bring it on ourselves.
I was going to say, we put ourselves in those positions because we want to continue to grow. And that's exactly it. So we've expanded and we've taken opportunities that are all for growth, essentially. And what I tell my team and how I operate is we have all the tools necessary, and we have the drive, we have the passion, and we have the knowledge, and we have the team. But we're bringing on other opportunities that might be completely new to us. So that's where you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We know that we can do it, but you have to look at every single, it takes accountability and ownership.
Right.
So as you're going through that process and you're facing those challenges, it means everything to be able to take feedback, not take it as criticism.
Right.
It's feedback and quickly solve issues to make the process or make whatever you're doing better. And it's that mentality that I constantly have, this learning mentality. What we do isn't perfect. We are learning every single day. But it's how you have that mentality and how you pivot and how you persevere through those things. But you have that accountability and communication. Communication is huge.
Huge. Yeah.
So that's really, we've had major challenges of bringing on new opportunities that were new to us. But again, it's all about staying on top of it, understanding what's going on, and solving it. And a big piece of that, I don't know, have you heard of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS?
Oh, EOS, yes.
We run our company on EOS.
Right.
That has been...
Traction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Traction, Gino Wickman, great book. All the tools are in there. But how we run our meetings, for instance, there's this whole issues list, and it's identify, discuss, and solve. And every issue we discuss, we come out with a solve that comes out with a to-do. So things are actually getting done, but it provides that transparency, and we're able to actually solve problems
That's great. Okay, so what is the future, your big, bold vision? What does the admin effect become when it grows up? Whatever that is. Is it where it's at today?
No, we're just getting started.
Got it.
What I'm most excited for is we're tapping into the carrier side of things, and we're helping connect the dots. So we're consulting with insurance carriers right now. Brilliant. And it's so awesome because to see the light bulb click and to be that advocate for the advisor and ultimately their client, they're the ones that go through this process where the insurance carriers often don't know what that actually is. Like, they're not out there doing the plans. They're not out there filling out the applications. So they don't understand what it actually feels like or what their decisions at the carrier level, how that truly impacts what we do.
Right.
So we have the opportunity through my relationships and being in the industry. That's a big piece of it too. We have those relationships that have allowed us to have the exposure to be able to tap into this piece. Yeah. But that's going to be huge in the future as we shed the light on different areas of why would I need this data on my website easily accessible? Well, right. This is why. Yeah. This is how this affects the end user.
I look at that as advocacy for our industry as a whole. We need more of that. And the more customers that you accumulate, the more basically power you have with advocacy. Why? Because it allows you to possess an incredible amount of that data and experience. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you. That's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it so much. You know, Scott, when I met you the first time, I knew right away that we had similar growth mentality, core values, and I'm just so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Cheers. Till next time.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.